success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and in the Hit Lab with me today, I've got an extra special treat for you folks. This is a local guy who has been killing it for quite some time. I've actually been following him, and he's been a colleague for the better part of a decade now. And so I'm really excited to get him in today to talk about his newest venture. Folks, check it out. I have the founder of the Red Oak Building Company, Josh Berry, in the Hit Lab with me today. How we doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, dude, it's we got a lot to talk about today, don't we?
Oh man, I got a long list.
I love it. Well, lists are good, man. Lists are good. So, well, I mentioned a minute ago that you're. It's not really a new venture anymore. You've been doing it for a while, but it's the newest thing that I know about, right? With Red Oak Building Company. So, talk to me about Red Oak Building Company.
Well, we're a renovation company, and we started off building chicken coops and fences, and the first year we did 100 renovations.
Wow.
And last year we tripled in business.
Jeez, that gets a hit right there. Everything you touch grows like that, though. That's kind of like what I'm getting to today. So check it out, folks. If you want to, you need to check out this guy online. First of all, on Instagram, follow Red Oak Building Company, and you can also check out their website, redoakbc.com. Right. That's right. So, all right. So chicken coops. I don't know. I don't know anybody that owns a chicken coop. So there's a market there, obviously, right? So tell me that story. How in the world did that come about?
Well, we had a chicken house fire. Back when I was at Labelive, and my wife started looking around at chicken coops that she wanted, and found one online that was $100,000.
No, oh my gosh.
We decided not to do that one, but I built it, and we did some little ha-has and hung pictures, and we have a chandelier in there, and so and it's pretty cool. And
well, it has to be if it's got a chandelier in it.
Somebody said, "Hey, I need a chicken coop," and they had a smaller budget than what we had for ours, but we helped them out, and it's pretty interesting. 2 years later, after we built their coop, we rebuilt their house because their house caught on fire.
Wow. Talk about full circle.
That's right.
Wow. Holy moly. Well, that's fantastic. So the rapid growth, you look like you're just having an absolute blast. You love what you do.
I love it.
And you know what? If you don't like what you're doing, you're not doing but what God put you here to do anyways. Mm-hmm. Right? So, well, the Josh that I met prior had nothing to do with it was a different type of building, I guess. It was in the world of AV, audio and visuals, right? And you guys were killing it. So let's take the folks back, and because I'm interested to hear a little bit about this story. So, all the way back, where'd you grow up? When did you know that you were going to be the business and being in leadership was going to be something that was for you?
Well, I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa,
okay.
And my first job ever was bagging groceries at a grocery store, and I learned from that grocery store maybe how to be OCD.
Okay.
And we had a contest. I was just telling the story the other day. I was the second fastest bagger in Iowa. We had...
There ain't no participation trophies here, baby.
That's my claim to fame right there.
There you go.
So then right out of high school, I moved to Nashville and started touring with artists and fell in love with production, and worked for a production company for about 10 years, and then broke off and started my own company in 2009, and then decided to bring on some business partners, and we were having rapid growth. We got to the point where we were doing about 3,000 concerts a year.
Man, that's massive. Yeah. That is massive. How big of a team does it take to do something like that?
I think we're at the point where we had about 100 employees.
Wow. Mm. Incredible. And this is in a short amount of time.
That's right. Within 10 years, and then in 2019, that was when things changed.
Yeah.
So
That's, nothing's permanent, whether it's good or bad. You know what I'm saying? And there's always change coming. Change is inevitable, but the growth that can come from that's optional, right?
well, that's true. And in that situation, the change at that point I thought was a very negative change for my life,
Right.
and it was a very difficult time. It was about 2 years of the feeling of fight or flight.
Okay.
And when you are in that state for that long, it's very difficult to transition out of that into a healthy state.
Yeah.
And so it was a very, very dark time. And after that, I decided to do 42 sessions of EMDR therapy.
Okay.
And if you don't know what that is, it was developed from rapid eye movement, and that happens when you're in your REM sleep. But a lot of times when we're awake, we don't know how to process things in a healthy way. And so what this does is it helps you to process in a very healthy way. And I just wanted to become a better husband, a better father, a better leader, a better me.
That's right.
And so when I thought life was terrible during those years of ending my career in the music business, it was actually probably one of the best things that could have happened.
Amen. Amen.
So, and along the way I had several mentors, and one of the mentors, he said, "Hey Josh, stop thinking about the past."
Yes. That's a good mentor.
He said, "Your rear view mirror is only this big, but your windshield
That's right.
is this big.
That's right.
Keep looking forward."
That's right.
That's what I wrote on the wall.
I love it. Well, thank you. I thank you. We've said that around here many times. You're exactly right, man. When you're going through, like they call them growing pains,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're going through those things, I can say when I went through something similar, that we probably have a lot in common with the way that we felt. However, I think it was magnified because I had a family at home. Like, how different do you think it would have been for you if you hadn't have been a husband and a father when you went through all that change?
I don't know if I'd be alive.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was that dark. And, there's a lot of people out there that deal with heavy anxiety, depression, and most of the time people don't get back up.
Right.
And I was determined because of my family, no, I can do this.
That's right. That's right. And one day your kids are going to go through something similar, and they're going to be able to remember what Dad went through and how he did it and how he conquered it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I say at home a lot that we're all authors. We're writing a story every day, and our kids are reading it just by living with us all day long.
That's right. And, my hope is that as they continue to grow and as I'm a father, that they are watching the things that I do and how I handle them. Several months back, I asked my boys, I said, how would you rate your childhood? Scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And Emmett looked at me and he said, I'm going to say 11.
Oh.
Conrad said, I'm going to agree with Emmett. It's 11. And that meant a lot. And I'm really lucky to have the boys that I do. I would probably say most of that's Julie, my wife. And
Oh, yeah.
she's a big key to it. And we had a situation last night where we have a rule: the boys can't take the cell phones to their room. Mm-hmm. And so,
see, buddy, you're not the only one, right?
and so she asked him flat out, "Do you have your cell phone?" And he said no. And as he's getting ready to go upstairs, he's wearing cast a brace for his wrist right now because he fractured his wrist, and it fell out, and he was busted. So we had a little talk with him about it, and he apologized, and we told him he can't have the cell phone for a couple days. But I thought about it, and the way that I handle that situation is going to have the biggest impact on his heart change.
Absolutely.
So what I did is I wrote him a letter and just talked about how disappointed I was in him lying to his mother. And I said, trust is the most important thing. And I went into it in great length. I said, the reason why the things that I touch grow is because people know they can trust me. And I want him to just continue to develop understanding what it means to earn trust. And I just ended the letter, I love you with all my heart.
That's right.
Dad.
That's right.
So,
well, you're exactly right. I agree with you. That it's all like at some point in time, as we all turn into teenagers, our relationship with our parents does change a little bit. It becomes more dynamic. However, my feelings about my kids are the same no matter how old they are. It's just they don't necessarily until they. There was a certain moment where it's like they're on my side, and all of a sudden they feel like my parents aren't on my side, and that's where the trust comes in. Like mine's 13, and we've dealt with some things that it's all trust related, and they're learning a lot about the word trust and what it means, and how it's a big part of relationships and everything else. But like, dude, we're on your side. That's the one thing that I can never tell them enough is I'm on your side. Like my job is to make sure that when the world tries to gobble you up, that you know how to, as a matter of fact, you're the one on the offense. You're not on the defense, right? You're prepared. And that's what we're trying to do, to prepare you for, to have all your dreams come true in this life. But most importantly, to be a follower of Christ in the process, right? That's a big deal. And how can you be a follower of Christ without trust?
That's true. And one thing that my wife is the one who helped us understand this, but she says, don't be nice, be kind.
Oh, that's huge, dude.
Because kind is way different than nice.
That's profound. Yeah, absolutely.
When you're kind, you can be hard.
Yes,
but you don't have to yell.
That's right.
And so the way I treat my kids is I'm kind to them, and in certain situations I have to just guide them, and do it in a loving way. And I think that the way my Father in heaven leads us is our example of how we should be fathers.
That's right. We were talking before, loyalty, trust, those things, one way are not smart. It's a two-way street on those. And that's another thing we've been trying to let our kids know. Sometimes, I've questioned, they must not trust us, or they wouldn't not tell the truth. There must be what is it that it's, and it's just because they're trying to go out and find their own selves. And I'm sure I was nuts as a teenager, I think. Like my emotions were like on a scale of 1 to 10, they were at 100. You know what I mean? Like everything was the end of the world as a teenager. So, and it hadn't been that long ago, I get, and it's one of the coolest things. I think the greatest gift that God gives us besides Jesus is a child. And that's the greatest gift in the world. And it's so cool because I learned so much about myself in my 30s, about how to think, how I learn. Because when I met you the first time, I had hit rock bottom and was building back up, and I was still on the ground floor when I met you the first time.
Wow.
And it was really, really hard, but I knew that our kids were watching everything. And actually, we only had one at the time. I knew my son was watching everything, and you're so right. Like being nice isn't it. Yeah, they have to do trust, but there's because I'm an athlete and because I got yelled at a lot. That's what coaches do a lot of times. So I have a coach's voice and I have a dad voice. everybody at home agrees the coach's voice needs to stay on the field, and sometimes it comes home, you know. And by the way, your wife has to be she must wear a cape. She sounds like a superhero, because I know mine is, right? Couldn't do anything without him. So how long have you been married, and how old are your kids?
21 years married, and we
Holy
have
cow.
A 13-year-old Emmett, and then Conrad's 16. And you know,
You guys are almost out the door, baby.
we had a date weekend last weekend. The boys stayed the night at friend's house for a couple nights, and we're like, oh, this is what it's going to be like.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you know, the timing of when changing careers happen, we thought we were going to lose our home.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
And
I basically did. Yeah.
And so my wife, she would get up at 6 a.m. every morning and walk around the house 7 times and pray over her house.
Mm.
And one morning she came in and said, hey, I want to, I just feel like we're supposed to keep our doors open, be a blessing to others, and have gratitude. And
Amen.
And I said, well, it's funny you say that, because I just learned about where we can list our house to be part of music videos and commercials. And
I remember when you guys built that. I followed it online. It's beautiful.
thank you. And she said, well, that's what I heard. Let's keep the doors open. Let's do it. So that afternoon, I posted pictures on this website, promotes houses or video sites, you know, video shoots. And so I posted it, and an hour later, Warner Brothers calls us, and they said, awesome. Can we rent your house for 2 months? And it was the perfect amount of money we needed at that time.
See?
So they saw that, you know, how we were open to allow people onto our property, into our home, and it's different. Not everybody does that.
That's right.
And so we continue to do that, and they were kind of getting tired of it, because you get 80 people showing up at your house with cameras and gear, and one day a producer shows up at our house, and he asked Julie, he said, so what's your boy's favorite Star Wars character? And she goes, oh, hands down, General Grievous. He goes, no way. She's like, yeah, that's it. And he sat down, and he said, well, I used to work for George Lucas, and I created that character. And he hand drew General Grievous there on the spot.
No.
And I got a picture of the boys with him.
How cool is that?
And they go, okay, we like this.
Absolutely.
So,
man. Well, that's cool. Isn't it cool watching, like, when you're raising your kids, like, they have a lot of, like, the way, when I learned how I learn, I see my son, the wheels are turning, and it's getting there. It's so cool. Like, he has my mind, right? Which is, it's just it's bad right now, but it will be great when it's developed. You know, but it's like, it's such a cool thing to watch, because, like, when my dad used to always say, boy, it ain't been that long, I know exactly what you're thinking before you think it. And, like, now it's like, you totally turn into your parents. It's such a cool thing.
well, you got an entrepreneur mind too. And
Yes, sir.
and so I'm sure that's the direction they're going to go. And Emmett, my youngest, he started his own. I didn't know he did this. And one day shoes show up at the house, and I'm like, what's the? Oh, I started an online business selling high-end shoes.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, they watch us, and
That's
they
right.
become just like us.
Well, how did you develop your business mind? Like, tell me how you got there.
I think probably some of it has to do with mentors I was surrounded with. They were always pushing me to greatness, and I honestly got frustrated with some of the bosses I had. I thought, if they could just do this or lead this way, then this company could go this direction. And honestly, I don't even think I have the greatest business mind. What I love doing is developing relationships and developing trust with people. And because when you can establish that trust, they want to work with you. You don't have to sell them anything.
That's right.
People want to buy. So
That's right.
what I do every day is I just form relationships, and it's amazing how a majority of my clients become great friends. And one client, I thought it was going to be a really tough job, and it was hard work, but it was a very rewarding job at the end. And they called us out of the blue last weekend and said, "Hey, we want to come by and see the daffodils at your house." And so,
How cool is that?
And this has been a year and a half of relationship that I've had with somebody I've never met before doing this.
You know, I believe a couple of very wise people that I look at as mentors taught me the same thing. Because of who my family is, we know a lot of people. They're very connected, and and so I'm connected to a lot of people. I've had a lot of great guests on the show that I was able to leverage relationships that my dad has when he was in the music business, and so on and so forth. So I didn't learn how to I didn't understand that relationships are the best currency for a very long time. And honestly, till probably like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago is when I really started to figure out that, like, focus on the relationships. And now that you said that, like, I mean, I was thinking in my mind, thinking, man, his framework must be phenomenal, right? Because I saw the culture you guys created. It was totally different than anybody else in the space at that time. I was just so impressed with it. But now that you say all I did was focus on relationships, ding, 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 like that, it makes sense, because how you make people feel, like you're trajecting that, putting that on them, and that's what you're going to get back. The universe feeds it back to you. So that's fantastic, man. When you say you focus on relationships, like, how do you, like, is it something that comes natural to you, or?
It is, even when I was, I'll go back and talk about Labelive a little bit.
Okay.
Because
it's a great company.
That started in 2009. In 2008 is when everything switched pretty hard from records to digital platform. Well,
let me ask you this first before you go there, because, like, you probably had a good job where you were at, when you left the company you're at to start your own thing. Dude, it takes, as Dale would say up front, he would say it takes big cojones to do something like that, because you got a family, you're married, and you're leaving security for growth, but it's not necessarily guaranteed, right? So, like, going out on your own like that's a big deal.
So I've experienced this feeling twice now, and this is one of them, where there's just something that happens in your soul where you go, something has to change. And whether you like it or not, it's going to change. And,
that's right.
And until somebody goes through that, they don't really understand what that emotion is. But you just know that you know that you know. That's right. That it's time to do something, and it's bigger than who you are. And so what I was looking at in the music industry is, like, all these artists were making money making records. Now they're making all their money doing shows. They're not making it on the record, but they're still spending the same amount of money and energy and time making a record. That's right. But they're not spending more time on what they're making money on. That's right. So what happens if you put more energy into the area that you actually make money on?
What you focus on grows.
So I wanted to create this environment where artists could come in and get creative on their live show. And so
I got to see right when you guys were pushing Lecrae's first big tour. Like, that was when I was there, and you guys were building that stuff out, and you guys previewed some of that stuff for me. It was, dude, it was so neat.
That was a lot of fun. And we got to see a lot of artists, and that was one tour that was a great example where
you took me to sound check to see it. Like, it was so neat.
They went from a few hundred people to thousands of people every night. And so that was our goal. Let's help grow the live touring industry, and it most production companies don't think that way. They think, let's exchange equipment for money, and I was like, why charge for this extra piece here? It's kind of like free luggage on Southwest Airlines.
That's right. That's right.
I wanted to get creative with a new model that wasn't proven. And I think in a short amount of time, we were able to prove that.
Absolutely.
And so kind of the same thing in Red Oak, when we're building homes, I'll show up at a job site. Let's say we're building a deck. Well, I have somebody that works with us in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So I give her drawings and information, and she's working on it while we're sleeping. I wake up at 7:30 the next morning, and in the inbox by 7:30, the client has the drawings from what we talked about the day before.
Mm.
So we give them a really good experience on, from the very get-go.
Mm-hmm.
We try to be quick and responsive as we can, because of the growth we've had. It's all word of mouth,
That's right.
and it's hard to keep up right now.
That's dude. It's I'm so like it's so impressive. Like to start a company like Labelive, like that, folks, you got to understand. There's you got to have staff, like everything. What did Labelive do? Everything. Like you guys had people going on the road with gear, box trucks, set up, tear down, creating the content that goes on the things for the show. I mean, it's a massive, massive thing to start a company like that. You got to have a whole lot of, you got to have inventory, you got to have space, team, everything. Like just starting something like that is an unbelievable undertaking.
It is. And in that world, a lot of capital. So,
That's right.
Which is why I brought on some business partners, because it got to a point where I knew I couldn't do this on my own. So it does take a team a lot of times. And when I started this with doing Red Oak, my wife is my partner, and so she's my cheerleader, and I just make the magic happen.
Well, let me ask you this: how'd you guys come up with the name Red Oak?
So when we built our house, our floors are red oak.
Okay.
And then the wood shop that I built, it was supposed to be a hobby shop. Now it's our let's collect all of our tools. And the exterior of that's red oak. And as we were deciding on names, red oak, the definition talks about longevity and durability. And we just wanted something with quality.
Yeah.
So we felt like it was a great fit. And so, and that's the thing that why I love this industry so much. You know, in the music business, we would set up and tear down shows, and 2 hours after it was a 2-hour concert, and then you got to tear it down. And here we work really hard to put it together, and it's permanent.
That's right.
And to see people's dreams come alive, that's a lot of fun.
Oh man, that's cool. That is cool. So, are there any other companies that you've been a part of?
There's been a handful. Aurosonics is an in-ear monitor company. We ended up selling that to Fender, and that was kind of a cool little run there. And
Absolutely.
And then we decided to get involved in building road cases because we were buying so many, and so we've done a handful of other things. Now I have a company called The Connector, which was intended to be in the music industry, and I just held on to the name for now because I feel like that's what I've been called to do, is to connect people, and so one day that will continue to expand. And then I have another company called Red Oak Capital, and so we started buying real estate recently, and
That's how you do it.
so we have so far one Airbnb and in the works on another remodel.
Man, it's that was one of the greatest things my wife and I did, is start getting involved in real estate investing. Like it was so cool. The first year that we made as much on that as we did actually working what we did every day. And it changed my whole paradigm, my whole perspective on everything. Cause it was like, well, if we made that there and we had all this, we weren't paying attention to that over here. Like, imagine if we, just like you said, if we focused on that a little longer, what would happen to it? You know what I mean? So it was always that was when we were going through some shifts and changing directions, and we don't quit anything, but we do finish, and quitting and finishing are two different things. So there were some things that we needed to finish, and they needed time because there was so many people involved to do those things, so we could go on to the next. It's such a cool, it's just a fascinating journey, man. Life is just such a gift.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Julie, we need to stop buying properties that she wants to keep.
No.
So, but no, we're having fun with that, and it's opened up a lot of doors because we're doing all these shoots, and we're building relationships with people in the production world. There was a organization that called a producer that had been to our house, and they said, "Hey, we're going to start a new renovation show on HGTV. Do you know any good builders?" Mm-hmm. And they said, "Oh, you got to call Josh." So they recommended me to Christina for Christina in the Country.
Okay.
And she currently has a show called Christina on the Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up building 4 houses with her last year.
Oh, wow.
They just asked us to do 12 more this year. And so it's just another part of the adventure. And they asked me, if I was excited to be working with Christina. And my answer was, I got married 21 years ago, and I told my wife life would be an adventure, and this is just part of the adventure.
That's right.
And I think that's, whether it's real estate investing or renting our house out for movie and commercials,
mm-hmm.
Or being part of HGTV or other fun things like this, being on a podcast, it's just another piece of the puzzle of
absolutely
the adventure of life.
Absolutely. So is that how you got? I mean, that's probably one of the things that are people that are watching the feed right now. They're probably thinking, I feel like we've seen that guy before, right? So and that is that how you got into HGTV and all that and all those things? Was that the intro into that?
It was just from the shoots at our house.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
And now, who knows what will happen from here? But
that's right.
I'm having fun doing it.
Absolutely. So you went from building. You don't need a GC license to build a chicken coop, I'm guessing, but you do to have a house.
That's right.
Right, to build a house.
Yep.
So, getting any kind of license, it's not fun. Like even just I have the health insurance ones. There's like 60 something of them total that we have. It's not a lot. And getting a license is not fun. Even a driver's license ain't fun.
Right. It took a couple weeks of classes and about 6 months of studying, and took 8 hours of 2 different tests and passed them. And most people don't the first time.
Did you celebrate? Because it took me my first insurance exam. I was that guy that had to go back 3 times. So they knew me, like the old lady that was there that wasn't nice to anybody. She was so nice to me. I think she just felt bad. You know what I mean? Because it was like she went from being like sorry to be like, oh, she was so sweet to me, and she was not really nice to anybody else that walked in there.
Yeah, I heard people have failed it 9 times before they get it, and so even when you finish the test, you still have to get approved by the board. And the board did not approve me because of lack of experience. And so I appealed, and I just explained to them my history of being in the music business, hanging thousands of pounds over people's heads in arenas, and just interaction with doing permanent installs, with other trades. And I just said, at the end of the day, Elon Musk, he has a GC license in almost every state, but he's not physically doing the work. He's going to hire smart people around him to actually execute. And so, and I said, you're in chapter 00.10. It says that they don't want people that have gone rogue, that they want fresh blood. And so they granted it to me. And
that's awesome. How long did that appeal process take?
30 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, they were very responsive.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, at least they were protecting license, because that makes me feel good. You know what I mean? That's a big deal.
Yeah. And, you know, it started off small, and I've increased my my limit a couple different times now. And so
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. So when you're making a transition from literally different industries, which it's great that you were able to recognize that, like, there were a lot of things that a bunch of skill sets that you had learned, just like you said, hanging things that were thousands of pounds over people's heads during the show, and those things are moving constantly too, with all the lights and the vibrations from the bass and the sound system and everything else. I mean, you're exactly right. A lot of people might not have connected those dots like that. You know what I mean?
I think most people, they move into more of a defense response rather than, and so then you're arriving at another person's level that has the power to make that decision. And I always try to think outside the box and go, okay, what would make the most impact on helping them make the decision? Because I'm confident in what I can do, and I think showing them that confidence help them with the decision making process.
No doubt. You can't fake confidence, not for real.
Yeah.
You can't fake it. So I'm assuming when you're leaving a company like that, usually there's a non-compete involved, right? Did you have one? How long was it?
It was 6 months.
6 months.
That's right.
So what'd you do during 6 months?
I was building a fence. We wanted to get sheep for our hill, so I didn't have to mow the hill. And that's when this company started, because somebody was driving by and said, "Hey, can you build me a fence?" And so,
man,
that's where it began.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Well, I know we talked a lot about relationships, but I really want to kind of spend a moment on that, because I think that's like, everybody has a superpower. And that's one of yours. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a way of. I was watching, literally last night, I was watching a thing on Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, and Larry Bird is not the most outgoing. He's an introvert, big time, right? He don't like to go out and hang out with friends, and him and Magic Johnson are polar opposites. But he just grinned like a little boy when he's talking about Magic. How he just makes you feel good. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, like, that's such a great thing if that's how you're remembered, like, man, you know what I mean? Like, what a way to be remembered for something like that. They just made people feel good. Like, I can't think of much more to be better remembered for than just that, So when it came to creating your culture, your environments, and all those things, how did you take that superpower of relationships to turn that into great company production, man? Because to go from no shows to 3,000 shows a year, that's big. That's big time. So how did you guys scale so fast, focusing on relationships? I'm learning today.
A big part of it was telling the story that I just shared about the transition that the music industry was going through.
Yeah.
And it caused a lot of light bulbs to all of a sudden turn on, and people wanted to be a part of that. And I believe they also really believed in me being able to help that help execute that.
Sure. I mean, leadership's a calling, right? It's not for everybody. It's something that you feel like, it takes courage. It takes a calling to stand up and be like, I'm going to do this. right? Who's coming with me type thing. We're going to do this together. You could have made people feel good at the job you were at for 10 years. What was it? What was the deciding factor for you that like really made you just want to be like, there's a better way to do it, or I want to do it a different way? How did it go for you?
That was a slow developing process because I was also tour managing an artist on those early years of the company. So I was kind of multitasking, and we were doing the inner monitor company at the same time. So
Gotcha.
I'd be up on a tour bus working till 3:00 in the morning and then start the day over at 7 a.m. And I was working with an artist that had a ton of number ones and wasn't selling very many tickets on his live show. And I remember having this experience where he invited a bunch of industry people out to this cabin where he wrote a bunch of songs, and the album was called The Story of Your Life.
Okay.
And he would take people's stories, and 99.9% of them were not positive stories. They were telling you their gut-wrenching, horrible things that they've gone through.
Yeah.
And I remember him stacking different categories. Some of it was on cancer, some was on sexual abuse, some of it was on alcoholism, and so he would write songs about those different topics. And when he started singing these songs and reading these stories, there's a dozen grown adults crying and weeping. And I remember driving away thinking, man, everybody needs to experience that cabin. And so when I got home, I called him and I said, what if we bring the cabin to the people? And so we developed this whole cabin backdrop and made videos that kind of told these stories. And as things developed, we started interviewing some of the storyteller or the people who wrote those stories and had them on camera for the show. And it was a huge impact on people. And I remember one song, I wanted him to have them tell the story before he plays on stage. And this is for a big touring music festival. And they, he only had 24 minutes on stage, and he did not want to do a 3-minute video in place of a song.
Right.
And so that first night he played that video, and he was nervous about it, and I was nervous too. And as soon as the video ended, it was a standing ovation, and then he goes into that song, and that song ended up being the #1 running song in Christian music.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool to see that. And I walked backstage, and he puts his arm around me. He said, "You were right." But that was a moment where I realized, you know what? We need to start spending more energy really developing something, and it takes a team. It doesn't just ride on the artist on deciding what songs to put on a set list that night. It's really thinking through strategy on what's going to really tell a story.
I feel like he's talking directly to us about our creative team right now. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. You're spot on, man. This is great stuff. That's so cool. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on. You got to go on. This is good. I got sucked in.
Well, that's where it really started. And then once I started realizing that was such a key thing for so many artists, because there's other artists that I worked with on the road where I go, we can do so much better. Some artists should be way bigger than they are.
Yeah.
And because the live show matters now. And so
right.
I just was very, very passionate about helping create great entertainment.
Man. Well, and now you've converted all that energy into just a different lane, right? So I'm really fascinated about I keep calling it the new company. It's not that new. How long has it been? How long has Red Oak been around?
2.5 years.
2.5. So it's not new anymore. It's not new. You guys are killing it. So talk to me about from chicken coops. You've mentioned you've built decks. And by the way, folks, if you want to know, like, check out the Instagram once again at Red Oak Building Company, spelled just like we're saying, and it's also in the show notes. Like, you guys show a lot of your work. The coolest thing is you showcase your clients too. On that feed, but like when you say a deck, it's not like most of the decks that you see on homes. You guys can do those too. But like these are really these are statements.
They are.
These are statements.
We don't do wooden decks.
Okay.
We'll only do composite or a Brazilian hardwood, or I want it to last forever. And so I get phone calls every day, people saying, "Hey, we just built this deck 5 years ago and it's already rotting." Tennessee is just hard on lumber, because last week it was 30 degrees and now it's 80 degrees.
Yeah.
So temperature changes, a lot of moisture. So when we build composite decks, we spend a lot of energy trying to make it right. And look fantastic. So we are now the top composite installer in Tennessee, and I think last year we did about 35 decks.
Man,
and then
there's only 52 weeks in a year.
I know. They stay pretty busy.
Yeah.
The renovation side, it started off with a couple bathrooms and kitchens, but now we're doing several full homes, and we took a double wide last year and turned it into a farmhouse, and vaulted ceilings. You would never know that it was once a double wide. Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My wife, she wouldn't be too mad at me for saying this, because she talks about it too. She lived in a double wide through part of her childhood.
Yeah.
And so she'll love that part. You know what I'm saying? She'll start, all of a sudden her mind will start going like, what could we have done, with ours? Well, like, you're talking about relationships and how does the relationships with your customers play into the customer experience? Because like, dude, we're putting in a big renovation on our home right now with a pool and a bunch of stuff. We're redoing the whole back landscape, and you deal with weather. Like, it's kind of like when, until I figured out I needed to show the girl that cuts my hair, Shannon, who's fantastic, a picture of what I wanted. What I was telling her and what she heard were two different things. I don't know. It's like when you make sounds to the mechanic at the car shop. You know what I mean? The last person that made that sound, it was this problem versus that. So there's a lot of interpretation in there. And you guys are having to deal with that a lot. Now, I know you guys get to draw and show, but it's still like, even with the 3D renderings, what they've finished, the hot tub just got delivered today. And it was like, even though I've seen it in 3D rendering, see it in person, totally different.
We didn't talk about my degree in counseling, right?
No, we did not.
I don't have a degree. But I should, because I think a lot of this, you're managing people's expectations, and especially when they're living in the home.
Yeah.
And they're seeing everything, especially the 15 hours that you're not in their home. And so
that's big.
And you're dealing with their finances, you're dealing with emotions.
Yeah.
Building is one of the most stressful things you can go through. And you're making a mess, and but it's temporary. And that's the thing that I have to remind them of, and a lot of it's just guiding, especially husbands and wives, because husbands care about the money typically, and the wives care about the beauty.
That's right.
And so, a lot of times that beauty costs more than what the husband wants to spend.
Oh, almost always, right? Until it's finished, and then the husband sees it, and then he sees the smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
And it was all worth it.
Yeah.
I had to I went through that for a little bit and decided I'm not going to be that guy on this. And it's going to be worth it.
I gave my wife a budget of $8 a square foot for tile for the backsplash in our kitchen, and $55 per square foot later. Custom made.
Totally worth it. Well, the again, like you're dealing with, you guys are dealing with weather. You're dealing with multiple other vendors and deliveries and all these things that are out of your control. And you're right. One of the communication part is so important. Like in any relationship, like, we've said this a lot too. I can't trace one problem in the history of mankind where we look back on it and be like, they communicated too good and that's why that problem happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So obviously you've mastered the skill of communication because that's how you manage expectations.
Right. Yep. And those are the kind of people I try to hire, people that communicate well, people who will answer the phone. So that's, I think, one reason people like working with us is because if I missed your call, I'm going to call you back.
There you go.
And when you text me, I'm going to text you back. And so people want people that will respond.
Absolutely. And you probably, like the cool thing about the company that's doing with this for us, and they're literally like the 14th company that those 13 that were before them that never even broke ground, for a whole year. And then these guys are, Dan and the boys, they're just phenomenal because like they communicate. Like they're like, hey, after this is done, you won't see us for 2 or 3 weeks because these permits have to come through. They got to finish, and then we'll come back and do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And that's such like, if not, you just think there's a giant hole in the ground, there's a mess, and nobody's here cleaning it up. What are they doing? They, most people would know that like we can't walk on that concrete because it hadn't, for this long because it hasn't done anything, or we can't lay that concrete because of the temperature today. Right. And so on and so forth. So you guys are dealing with a lot of that. And Dan reminds me a lot of you because he has really good people that communicate really well, but like he's not entrenched so much in building something or dragging something or driving something. Now he drove the hammer and the sledgehammer. He's driven a lot of the equipment, but when it comes time to communicate, those guys are out there working and he's dealing with us. And it's like the experience with them has been awesome. And I'm just like, see, this is the type of people that you want to be around. You want to be around people that make you better, and give you a good experience. And it's just such a neat thing. So, what else? So you guys are building houses, decks. What don't you build? I guess is what I should ask because you guys cover so much.
Well, we stopped building fences recently.
Yeah.
We live in the land of Rocky Top.
Yeah.
So it's unpredictable. And however, we did kind of a special, unique project for some good friends of ours. Just finished it last week, and it's a wrought iron fence, kind of Gothic looking.
Oh man!
On top of a stone wall that we built, and we redid the sidewalks and did pavers to the house, and it's stunning.
That's awesome. So it sounds to me like if somebody is wanting to do something cool and unique, any type of renovation or addition, because it sounds like a lot of the projects you guys are taking on is like, that's something I would like to do. That's not something we necessarily founded this company to do, but that's definitely something we'll take on. They should ask you first, right?
I think so. We that's what makes this fun is there's nothing mundane about it. Everything is a unique challenge, and I believe I've learned something literally every single day since I started this company.
That's fantastic. And it's got to be cool too because you guys have quite the portfolio now of really cool things to look at, and I'm sure and awesome. And your wife's your partner, right? My wife is my partner, and that's been I love being around her. So like, why would I work is no different. You know what I mean? That's you saw the office back there. That's her desk next to mine. That's on purpose, right? Cool. That's how we'll always do it. That's how we kind of have things at home. It's rare that we're not together when we're working. I just love being around her. Everybody likes me better when I'm around her. You know what I mean? She makes the world a better place. So is that how it is for you guys too?
Same here.
Yeah. They make us look good, don't they?
Oh, she does.
That's right. That's right. They make us look good, man. And is all your guys' work done here locally? How far out do you go?
We limit ourselves to a 25-mile radius of Franklin.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
25-mile radius of Franklin, Tennessee. Folks, once again, check out Red Oak Building Company on Instagram and their website, redoakbc.com. We're hanging out with Josh Berry, the founder of Red Oak Building Company today. Brother, as we get towards the end of the journey here today, is there anything else that you'd want to leave everybody with? Any final messages, any final thoughts, final words? I could sit here and I don't like the phrase pick your brain. I think it just sounds nasty, right? But I could sit here and pick your brain all day long because I've always been so impressed with everything you did. And, you know, when we were talking about your departure from your previous, from the company that you started, that was your vision, this is the type of people you want to be around. Like, he didn't take any opportunities to throw anybody under the bus. Mm-hmm. And that I respect that a whole lot because nobody needs that. It doesn't help anybody to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, it only helps the person. It's actually selfish. It helps you, and that's it. And nobody else feels better because you brought somebody down, you know, or you sunk to their level for that matter. Mm-hmm. So I was so impressed with that.
You know, the thing that that I really make sure that I spend a lot of time doing is spending quality time with my family. Mm-hmm. True success is your kids, your wife. Mm-hmm. All the other stuff doesn't really matter.
That's right.
You're not going to take it with you. So I make sure I tell them I love them multiple times a day.
That's right.
And that's the most valuable thing in life. And with that, then all the other stuff that your kids do throughout life, mm-hmm. whether it's career or my oldest wants to be in the Army. I never influenced him to want to do that, but he's in JROTC going on. This is his second year, and I've seen him become way more disciplined, and those things will just happen and be more successful for them if I spend the time with them and show them how much I love them.
Amen. Amen. Well, I got to ask you too, are there any mentors or books that you would recommend to our folks? Because you've obviously taken time to educate yourself.
Well, I've had several mentors. My first mentor, he taught me how to drive, Bob Kennedy, and then there's been several other people along the way, Andy Christensen, Jim Lewis, Mark Arnold. Mm-hmm. You know, I just gain a lot of wisdom from them. And they usually are the ones who turn me on to these books. But when I was going through EMDR therapy, there was a book called Switch on Your Brain, and Dr. Caroline Leaf, and it's phenomenal. It really just helped me just get in a healthy mental space.
That's right.
And at one point, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and I don't deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
And also, there's a book called U-Turn, and it talks about creating a career change, and that's a fun book. And then, just in general, one of my favorite authors is Bob Goff. And
Bob's good. Yeah, I like Bob.
Yeah. So he's inspirational. Hopefully I can hand my keys to a janitor one day and just walk out the door like he did.
That's right.
So
I'd just to be hanging out with a guy like that for a day or two, it'd be just amazing.
Yeah.
Because he just looks like he's had such. We've gone through some of his books in church groups and stuff. Really like Bob Goff a lot.
Yeah, he talks about his offices at Disneyland. Mm-hmm. So on the little island there, and I remember going to that island last time I was at Disneyland and going, I bet Bob is sat right here.
That's right. Isn't that cool? Man. Well, you gotta feed yourself. You gotta feed your mind. It's almost like it's just combating all the stuff that's coming at you. That's for me. That's how I digest it. I was never a big reader. I was never a reader. Until I was, and then the greatest things is I like listening to things over and over again, just in the background, because I hear it. I still hear it, even though I might drift and think of other things and whatnot. So when I take my walks, or my son and I watch a lot of podcasts when we work out together and all those things. It's just, for whatever reason, knowledge wasn't cool as a kid. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't cool to be interested in those things. And, as I get older, that like, man, that's the cool, like, that's very cool, to learn and grow. And more than anything, just like, everybody wants to work out their body and take care of their bodies. You got to work out your mind too, man.
That's right.
It's a big old muscle you got to work with.
That's right. Well, man, thanks for having me. It hopefully this inspires people, and that's why I do what I do.
Well, dude, like, first of all, before too long, you need one of these because it would be dynamite. It would absolutely be dynamite. Plus, with the relationships that you have, that was one of the biggest things that made me want to start this, was because it was a great way to feature those relationships, and it's a great way to network, and it's the most powerful tool I have in my tool belt today. I mean, like, honestly, like, when we first made the list of guests of people I wanted to bring in, you were on the short list, the very, very short one.
Honored.
And, so it was like, just to hear the story, and what excuse would we have had today other than just trying to find one if we didn't have this show to talk on, right? So it's a great reason to a great way to invest in relationships, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Well, brother, thank you. This was I had a blast, man. I had a blast, and I could keep you all day, but I won't. I won't. And but maybe we'll bring you back. How about that?
Sounds great.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Can't
Well, folks, we've been hanging with Josh Berry, the founder of Red Oak Building Company. Check him out online, redoakbc.com, and on Instagram, Red Oak Building Company. I can't wait to see what you guys, if you're doing all this stuff right now, like the next 12 months are going to be super excited. 5 years from now, who knows? You'll probably be renovating the White House or something by then. You know what I'm saying? Always a good time, brother, and quite the episode. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. I really do.
Thank you.
Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.